OpenAI is headed for what could be one of the biggest IPOs in US history. The company actually just filed with the SEC and is targeting a September listing, with Wall Street pricing it somewhere between $730 billion and $1 trillion. Now, the problem is you can't buy it, at least not yet. But here's what most investors don't realize. We actually just watched this exact movie play out with SpaceX, and the investors who made the most money were not the ones who bought on IPO day. They were the ones who owned the right stocks before it listed. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what the SpaceX IPO actually taught us, the 3 publicly traded stocks most directly positioned to benefit from the OpenAI listing, and the signal that tells exactly when this trade starts accelerating. And that signal is coming in section 3, so don't skip that part of the video. Hi, I'm Jacob Wade. I'm a financial coach that helps high-income earners retire early. And if you like videos like this one, just hit the thumbs up button below there. It tells me to keep making more videos just like this. Now let's start with the scale of what's actually coming with this IPO. Now, OpenAI confidentially filed with the SEC earlier this month, and Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are leading the deal. The target is going to be a September listing somewhere between $730 billion and $1 trillion in valuation. Now, to put that into perspective, OpenAI's last private valuation already puts it larger than Berkshire Hathaway. And $1 trillion listing would put it alongside Amazon and Alphabet in day one of trading, and just below SpaceX. And this is a legit company with real revenue, roughly $2 billion a month, and nearly 1 billion weekly users on ChatGPT, growing faster than Alphabet and Meta did at comparable stages of their company. But the company is still losing money and doesn't expect to be a profitable company until around 2030. So this is a bet on the future, not right now. Now, with this IPO, OpenAI isn't arriving alone. Anthropic, its biggest competitor, also filed for IPO this month at a valuation also approaching around $1 trillion. And remember, SpaceX just went public last week. Now, combined, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.6 trillion in new AI listings hitting public markets in a single year. That's roughly the GDP of France, and that is not a normal IPO cycle. And by the way, if you like these kind of breakdowns, you should know that this type of insight is what our editor-in-chief Steve Reitmeister shares in his live weekly trading sessions. It's totally free and includes some of his top stock recommendations, so you can join the next one this Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Just visit wallstreetzen.com/live or scan the QR code on the screen right here to sign up right now. All right, before I share the stocks, first we got to talk about what just happened with SpaceX, because this is where it will inform your strategy. Now, SpaceX just went public on June 12th as the largest IPO in NASDAQ history. It priced at $135 a share, opened at $150, and within 4 days it hit an all-time high of $225 a share. Now, as of Monday morning, it had pulled back roughly around 25% from its peak, but things are moving quickly with the stock, so make sure you check out the latest data on WallStreetZen.com. And to give this a little more context, the former CEO of NASDAQ itself came out publicly this week and said the stock isn't trading on fundamentals, it's trading on aspiration. So I'm not here to pile on SpaceX. The business is impressive, yay. But what happened to the stock the week after the IPO is a pattern that every investor needs to understand before OpenAI goes public. So what happens is the hype builds before the listing, the stock peaks around IPO day or a couple days after, and then reality sets in. The investors that actually made the most money from SpaceX were not the ones who bought on day one. They were the ones that owned the right stocks before the ticker even existed, stocks that moved on the narrative before the IPO arrived. And we're already seeing this with OpenAI. It's proven that OpenAI can move the stock market, right? Just on Monday alone, Getty Images more than doubled in price on news of an OpenAI licensing deal. And that window of opportunity is still open for OpenAI leading up to the IPO itself. And that's exactly what this video is going to be about. Now, in a minute here, I'm going to share 4 stocks that I think are worth watching as we build up to OpenAI's IPO dates. But first, I want to give you a checklist of 4 signals to watch beforehand that could actually create significant moves in any or all of these stocks that I'm about to talk about. So here are the 4 things you need to watch that will tell you how this trade is actually developing. So number 1 is going to be the public S1 filing. So as of right now, OpenAI's SEC filing is actually confidential. So that means the financial details, the margins, infrastructure, contract terms, none of that is public yet. When OpenAI files publicly, all of that actually becomes visible for the first time. And that filing will move every stock in this video on the day that it drops. So I would just go in and set a Google alert for OpenAI S1, just put that in as a Google alert right now, and that's going to be the starting gun for this trade. Now, the second signal I'm looking at is Nvidia's next earnings, specifically the data center number. Now, here's why this actually matters for OpenAI. So the IPO is going to price based on investor appetite for AI infrastructure spending. And if Nvidia's data center revenue is still compounding at a high rate, which it has been, this tells the market that enterprise demand for AI compute is real, it's durable, and still accelerating. And that's exactly the environment in which an OpenAI IPO gets the warmest reception. Now, on the other side, a miss on their data center number doesn't just hurt Nvidia, it actually cools the entire narrative OpenAI is selling to public investors. All right, the third signal we're going to be looking at is any revenue update from OpenAI between now and September. Now, again, OpenAI is currently doing around $2 billion a month in revenue. Now, before the S1 goes public, if there's any disclosed update to that number, whether it's a press interview or a leak or some type of filing, that is going to move the Proxy stocks. And if that number is accelerating, the trade is going to accelerate with it. So watch for any public commentary from OpenAI leadership in the weeks ahead. And number 4, we're going to be watching the roadshow. Now, OpenAI is going to kick off an investor roadshow roughly 2 weeks before the IPO date, and that's when the institutional demand gets priced in publicly for the first time. And historically, that 2-week window is when Proxy stocks move the hardest as institutional money positions ahead of allocation. So when roadshow news drops, that window to get ahead is already starting to close. So you want to be positioned before that announcement, not after. All right, now let's get to the picks. So here are the OpenAI proxy stocks is what I want to call them. So here's how I'm screening these. Number 1, every stock in this video has been run through Zen Ratings. It's a system that grades stocks in A through an F by pulling together data across 115 different factors, including fundamentals, momentum, sentiment, and financials. And I'm going to show you the grade for each of these stocks as we go through them. And I want to be upfront about the structure here. So first, I'm going to share with you 2 obvious picks that everyone is going to be watching, but to be honest, the fundamentals might not back them up as an actual investment you should be interested in. Could that change? Well, absolutely, which is why I'm mentioning them now. And then I'm going to get to the 2 names where the grades already back up the story. Now, while I'm sharing real stocks and real data, I'm not giving you personalized investment advice. Please always do your own research before buying or selling any stock. All right, first up is Coreweave, ticker symbol CRVW. Now, Coreweave has contracts with OpenAI already worth up to $22 billion, and OpenAI is already an equity investor in the company itself. Now, if OpenAI's IPO reignites the AI infrastructure trade, Coreweave is the stock with the most direct contractual exposure to that momentum, and it can move hard just on sentiment alone. But the Zen rating is an F, which is a strong sell recommendation. Financials grade F, sentiment grade F, safety grade D. The company is unprofitable, carries heavy debt, and has significant debt repayment due later this year. So what I'm watching to change my mind is the next earnings print for any movement toward a positive cash flow, and whether that debt repayment gets handled cleanly. So until then, the grade just doesn't support the investment thesis. Now, remember, the Zen ratings are updated daily, so if you do want to see when things change, if they do, for Coreweave, you can always look it up on WallStreetZen.com, or better yet, start a free watch list on there so you can start getting regular updates on these stocks. All right, the second stock that is watch only here is going to be Microsoft, ticker symbol MSFT. Now, I'll say Microsoft's probably the closest thing to an OpenAI proxy stock right now. It owns a major stake in OpenAI, powers much of OpenAI's infrastructure through Azure, and is building OpenAI's technology into products like Copilot, Office, Windows, and its enterprise software. Again, Microsoft owns roughly 27% of OpenAI. So when OpenAI goes public, that stake gets marked to market for the first time. So that is a specific, tangible catalyst tied directly to the IPO date. But Microsoft Zen rating is a C, which is a hold recommendation. And every component grade inside of Microsoft is a C except for financials and AI, which is both a B. Now, that's not a bad roster of grades, but all those Cs are not necessarily impressive. For a company that size and that is that widely followed, a C tells you that the market has already priced in most of what makes Microsoft interesting here. So there's really no edge in the data at current levels. So watch it, put it on your watch list, and if momentum picks up around that S1 filing date and the grade improves, then it could be worth revisiting. But as for now, just keep an eye on it. Now, let's talk about some stocks with a real connection to OpenAI that could actually provide more sustainable gains based on what the fundamentals say. Our stock number one here is going to be Nvidia, ticker symbol NVDA. Now, Nvidia is the connective tissue of everything I've discussed in this video. OpenAI trains its models on Nvidia GPUs. Nvidia is also a $30 billion equity investor in OpenAI. So the relationship flows both directions. OpenAI pays Nvidia for compute, and Nvidia has a direct financial stake in OpenAI's success. Now, the next generation Rubin GPU architecture is expected in the second half of 2026, a new product cycle landing on top of data center demand that is already compounding at extraordinary rates. Now, trailing revenue for Nvidia is massive, north of $250 billion, and it's growing at over 100% year over year. Profit margins are running at 63%. This is one of the most profitable businesses in the history of technology. And Nvidia comes with a current Zen rating of an A, which is a strong buy recommendation. The 1 weak spot is safety, which grades a D. Nvidia carries meaningful debt to fund its growth, and that's worth knowing, and growth comes in at a C. But value and momentum are both at a B, and momentum ranking is in the top 19%, while the value ranking is in the top 14%. Now, sentiment is currently at a B, ranking in the top 7%, and the standout is those financials grading an A, ranking it at the top 1% of all stocks in our entire system. So here's the bottom line on Nvidia. It doesn't need the OpenAI IPO to go well to be a strong business. But if that S1 drops and reignites the AI infrastructure narrative, which is exactly what happened after every major AI announcement over the last 3 years, then Nvidia is the first stock institutional money reaches for. It is the anchor of this trade. By the way, if you like stock talk like this, then I once again remind you to check out WallStreetZen's no-cost live training sessions. You can join our editor-in-chief, Steve Reitmeister, on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, he doesn't just talk about what he's buying, but how he's finding stocks so that you can do the same in the days ahead. And he also shares his trade of the week, combining the best of the Zen ratings with his 40-plus years of investing experience. So again, if you like this type of content, I strongly recommend that you just pause the video for a minute and register for free at wallstreetzen.com/live. You'll also find a link in the description, or you can scan the QR code on the screen right here and sign up right now. All right, pick number 2 here is going to be Dell Technologies, ticker symbol DELL. Now, Dell is widely known, but is less obvious as an AI play, and I think it's the more interesting one to actually talk about here. So here's the connection to OpenAI that most people aren't thinking about. OpenAI's data centers don't just need chips, they need servers, physical racks of hardware that house those Nvidia GPUs and make them operational at scale. And Dell is one of the primary companies building and shipping those server racks. When OpenAI's Stargate data centers expand, Dell fulfills the physical infrastructure orders that actually make the expansion possible. And Dell's AI server business has been one of the fastest growing segments in the company itself. And unlike Nvidia, which gets most of the attention and carries the valuation to match, Dell is still trading at a fraction of the multiple of its AI infrastructure peers. Plus, Dell comes into this video with a Zen rating of an A, which is a strong buy. And looking at the component grades, financials come in at a B, but the standout components here are growth, momentum, and sentiment, all grading an A, ranking in the top 3%, 2%, and top 1% of all stocks in the system, respectively. And that holy trinity of A grades actually tells you something here. Sentiment at the top 1% tells you that institutional money is paying attention to this name right now, and momentum at the top 2% tells you that the stock is already moving in the right direction. Add in growth in the top 3%, and that tells you that the underlying business itself is actually performing well. Most investors thinking about the OpenAI IPO are actually looking at Nvidia already. Almost nobody is talking about Dell. And that gap between the narrative attention and the actual grade is exactly where the opportunity tends to live. So if you want exposure to the OpenAI infrastructure build out with a strong Zen rating behind it and a valuation that hasn't been completely run up by the AI hype cycle, Dell is definitely a name to watch. All right, so there you have it. That is my take on the upcoming OpenAI IPO and IPO madness in general, and a steadier, more sustainable approach to the market. What did you think? Are you going to watch any of these stocks that I mentioned in the video, or maybe you have your own list going already? I really want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. We read every single one of those, and we'd love to know what you're doing when this thing comes out. And again, if you liked this video, definitely check out my recent video right here where I react to the SpaceX IPO. Many of those takeaways are actually still relevant to this new IPO that's coming out.